Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda and this is my channel, Her Pacific Northwest Washington Life, and today I wanted to share with you my bi-monthly TBR for the months of September and October. So these are books that kind of transition a little bit out of summer into fall and have a little bit more of a spooky feeling to them. There are a couple books that I don't own physical copies of, so I want to get through those first, and then we'll kind of organize them by a couple of that I want to prioritize towards September, and then the rest that I'll probably try to prioritize more towards October, just because I think they fit October a little bit better. So the four books that I don't own physical copies are The Beekeepers Promise by Fiona Valby. And because I haven't read these books, I am just going to read like the first paragraph of each book's synopsis to give you more of a better idea of what these books are even about. So The Beekeeper's Promise, the synopsis says, heartbroken and hoping for a new start, Abby House takes a summer job in rural France at the Chateau Bellevue. The old chateau echoes with voices from the past, and soon Abby finds herself drawn to one remarkable woman's story. A story that could change the course of her summer and her life. This one looks like it kind of splits timelines a little bit. I think we get Abby's point of view in the present, and then I think we also go back to 1938 to follow Elaine Martin, who tended the beehives at the Chateau Bellevue. So I think it's a bit of a love story, and really excited to see what that's about. The next book on the list is Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patty Callahan, and this one is from New York Times bestselling author Patty Callahan. Comes an exquisite novel of Joy Davidman, the woman C.S. Lewis called My Whole World. When poet and writer Joy Davidman began writing letters to C.S. Lewis, known as Jack, I didn't know that, she was looking for spiritual answers, not love. Love, after all, wasn't holding together her crumbling marriage. Everything about New Yorker Joy seemed ill-matched for an Oxford Dawn and the beloved writer of Narnia, yet their minds bonded over their letters, embarking on the adventure of her life. Joy traveled from America to England and back again, facing heartbreak and poverty, discovering friendship and faith, and against all odds, finding a love that even the threat of death couldn't destroy. So I grew up reading The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I haven't read any other works by him, but I hope to change that at some point. So I think this will be a really interesting story just to kind of read and find out a little bit about his life and his wife. The next book I have is, the last two are going to be prioritized more towards October. So we've got Strange Practice by Vivian Shaw. And this one says, Greta Helsing inherited the family's highly specialized and highly peculiar medical practice. In her consulting rooms, Dr. Helsing treats the undead for a host of ills. Vocal strain in banshees, arthritis in barrow wights, and entropy of mummies. Although barely making ends meet, this is just the quiet, supernatural, adjacent life Greta's been groomed for since childhood. And I think it turns a little bit more dark. I want to say this one is a young adult, maybe middle grade, but I don't recall 100%. But the last book I hope to pick up, I own on my Kindle, and this one is Because You Love to Hate Me, 13 Tales of Villainy. And this was an author and booktube collaboration. So we've got 13 different authors in a unique YA anthology. So we've got best-selling authors team up with 13 influential booktubers to reimagine fairy tales from the oft misunderstood villain's point of view. So some of the authors are Renee Audier, Anne-Marie, Soman Chinani, Susan Dennard, Sarah Ennie, Marissa Meyer, Cindy Pond, Victoria Schwab, Samantha Shannon, Adam Silvera, Andrew Smith, April Genevieve, Chuchok, and Nicola Yoon. So I know a couple of those authors. Some of them I don't know. And I know a couple of the booktubers as well. Well, I not personally know, but I know of them. So I think that'll be really interesting to read. So I've got 3 books that I kind of want to prioritize more towards September. The first one being Life of Pi by Jan Martel. I've never read this book before. I've never watched the movie, but we have a sinking cargo ship and a solitary lifeboat that remains bobbing on the wild blue Pacific. Only survivors from the wreck are 16-year-old boy named Pi, a hyena, a wounded zebra, an orangutan, and a 450-pound Royal Bengal tiger. So the story has always intrigued me. I've never read it though, like I said, so I really hope to get to it, obviously, in the next 2 months and see what it's all about. I've got a book that has showed up on a couple of my late spring and summer TBRs that I haven't gotten around to reading yet, and that is Cider House Rules by John Irving. I have seen the movie, I've never read the book, but this was first published in 1985. It is set in rural Maine in the first half of the 20th century and tells the story of Dr. Wilbur Larch, who is a saint and obstetrician, founder and director of the orphanage in the town of St. Cloud's. He's an ether addict and an abortionist. It's also the story of Dr. Larch's favorite orphan, Homer Wells, who is never adopted. So I remember enjoying the story when I watched this a long time ago, but it's got Tobey Maguire in it, and I don't remember what about it I liked, but I remember enjoying it, so I would like to read the book and see if it still kind of has the same sort of feelings and holds up and stuff. And the last September slated book is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This was a gift for me from my friend Eric over at the channel Break Even Books, and it is about a Renaissance fair basically. So we've got the synopsis. It says, Emily knew there would be strings attached when she relocated to the small town of Willow Creek, Maryland, to help her sister, who could have anticipated getting roped into volunteering for the local Renaissance fair, or that the irritating and inscrutable school teacher in charge of the volunteers would be so annoying that she finds it impossible to stop thinking about him. I think she ends up having to volunteer because her sister has surgery or is sick or something like that, and her niece is a part of the fair. So what I've heard is that Emily and the school teacher really dislike each other outside of the fair, but once they both get into costume, there's a different dynamic to their relationship, and I hope they fall in love, but we shall see. So now my slightly more spooky books that I think fit a bit more of the October or Halloween vibe. I've got quite a few of them here. So we'll just start with The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is a beautiful UK paperback edition that I found at the local Goodwill in my town. But this one takes place in the 1920s, and the synopsis says, Evie O'Neill has been exiled from her boring old hometown and shipped off to the bustling streets of New York City, and she is positively ecstatic. The only catch is that she has to live with her Uncle Will and his unhealthy obsession with the occult. But when the police find a murdered girl branded with a cryptic symbol and Will is called to the scene, Evie realizes she could help catch the killer. I've heard a little people say this kind of spooked them a little bit, so I guess I'm sort of looking forward to that, but I think October will be the perfect time to pick up this book. The next book I have is also a movie I have seen and not read the book to, but that is Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. And I think I know like what all happened and things like that, but not sure 100% my brain was there either. So for those of you that don't know, this is a very short synopsis. So In the year 1954, U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels and his new partner, Chuck Owl, come to Shutter Island, home of the Ashcliffe Hospital for the Criminally Insane, to investigate an unexplained disappearance. Multiple murderess, Rachel Solando, is loose somewhere on this barren island, despite having been kept under constant surveillance in a locked, guarded cell. As a killer hurricane bears relentlessly down on the island, hints of radical experimentation and covert government machinations add darker, more sinister shades to an already bizarre case, because nothing at Ashcliffe Hospital is remotely what it seems. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, so the details are not clear in my mind. And like I said, I think my brain got to the place that it was supposed to get to, but we'll find out when I read the book. So yeah, there's that. The next book I would like to read, at least part of, is the Complete Sherlock Holmes Volume 1 by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I have Volume 1 and Volume 2 in the Barnes & Noble paperback classic editions. I think that's all of his stories on Sherlock Holmes bound up. But for those of you that don't know about Sherlock Holmes, I will read the first paragraph here for you. Eccentric, arrogant, and ingenious Sherlock Holmes remains the world's most popular and influential fictional detective. In 4 novels and 56 short stories, Holmes, with his trusted friend Dr. Watson, steps from his comfortable quarters at 221B Baker Street into the swirling fog of London. Combining detailed observation and brilliant deduction, Holmes rescues the innocent, confounds the guilty, and shovels the most perplexing puzzles solves, not shovels, the most perplexing puzzles crime has to offer. So Volume 1 begins with Holmes' first appearance in a study in Charlotte, followed by the baffling The Sign of Four. Let's see, it also includes story collections, Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, along with the tale The Final Problem. And then it concludes with The Hound of the Bakersvilles. So, really looking forward to reading this. I love the Robert Downey Jr. movies of Sherlock Holmes. I've not yet watched the Benedict Cumberbatch TV series, but I've never read any of the Sherlock Holmes stories, so I'm really looking forward to reading them this year. The next book I have is Roseblood by A.G. Howard, which is a Phantom of the Opera retelling that I have been wanting to read for quite some time. Rune Germain, whose voice has been compared to that of an angel, has a mysterious affliction linked to her talent that leaves her sick and drained at the end of each performance. Convinced that creative direction will cure her, Rune's mother ships her off to a French boarding school for the arts at a renovated opera house, rumored to have ties to the Phantom of the Opera. I love the Phantom of the Opera musical. I've only ever watched the movie. I've never actually seen the Phantom of the Opera live, but I think this will be really interesting to read through. I also would like to get to the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This one, I think, was published last year, maybe the year before, and what I know is that, well, I'll just read the synopsis, it's really short. Evelyn Hardcastle will die every day until Aidan Bishop can identify her killer and break the cycle. But every time the day begins again, Aidan wakes up in the body of a different guest, and some of his hosts are more helpful than others. I think his memory is wiped at the end of each day too, so he doesn't wake up knowing everything, but I'm not 100% sure. This just reminds me so much of Clue, having to figure out who done it, and I think it will be a lot of fun. I think a lot of people really enjoyed this as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. Up next we have a classic, which is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and obviously I've never read this. I read Dracula for the first time last year and really enjoyed it, so I would love to read Frankenstein because I know about Frankenstein, but I've never actually heard the full story. So for those of you that don't know, I think that's it. Frankenstein is the monster And there's a quote. It says, with an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. By the glimmer of the half-extinguished light, I saw the dull yellow eye of the creature open. It breathed hard, and a convulsive motion agitated its limbs. And so the creature comes to life. It's a classic that I would like to read. That's basically it. The second to last book I have is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This series I think finished up last year, but I'm not 100% sure. This is obviously a retelling. And the first paragraph says, groomed to be the perfect high-born Victorian young lady, Audrey Rose Wadsworth has a decidedly different plan for herself. After the loss of her beloved mother, she is determined to understand the nature of death and its workings, trading in her embroidery needle for an autopsy scalpel. Audrey secretly apprentices in forensic. She soon gets drawn into the investigation of serial killer Jack the Ripper, but to her horror, the search for clues brings her far closer to her sheltered world than she ever thought possible. So, obviously inspired by Stalking Jack the Ripper, not Stalking, Jack the Ripper, who murdered a whole bunch of people back, I don't know the time. I don't know a lot of the, like, true stories around Jack the Ripper, but I know a little bit, so it'll be interesting to kind of read this take on that real, or was he real, person in history. And the last book I have planned to read is The Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This one has a kind of magical enchanted library that sounds like a lot of fun. But the first paragraph says, Elizabeth has known that as long as okay. You know when you start reading a sentence and you don't pause at the right point and it just doesn't make sense? That's what just happened. So, Elizabeth has known that as long as she has known anything. Oh, shoot, I'm supposed to read the first part. I am so sorry. All sorcerers are evil. Elizabeth has known that as long as she has known anything. Raised as a foundling in one of Ostermere's great libraries, Elizabeth has grown up among the tools of sorcery. Magical grimoires that whisper on the shelves and rattle beneath iron chains. If provoked, they transform into grotesque monsters of ink and leather. She hopes to become a warden, charged with protecting the kingdom from their power. I've read the synopsis before. There's a lot more that goes on with it, but I think this sounds like a lot of fun. I think this book is either, though, like a hit or a miss for a lot of people. I'm hoping it's a hit for me. I mean, obviously, any book you pick up, you kind of hope is a hit for you. But I'm really interested to kind of get into this. I liked Margaret Rogerson's first book, An Enchantment of Raven, so I'm really hoping that will be the same case for this one. So I think that was 15 books. Obviously, having a bi-monthly readathon, things are going to get read, other things are going to get added in. It's all going to be decided when I pick up books, but these are the 15 books that I would like to get to this year because they, for me, really fit the kind of beginnings of fall and the spooky season vibes. So really looking forward to reading all of these. They're all books from my bookshelf already, and I think a lot of them are going to be a lot of fun. So I would love to know your thoughts surrounding these books, if you've read any of them, if you would like to read any of them, if I should prioritize some over the others, just all your thoughts surrounding them. Please do let me know down in the comments below, and I will chat with you there until my next video. Bye!